everyone, and welcome to the headline event of People Matters week long series in partnership with Unstop on the new AI talent engine, reimagining talent communities, velocity, and experience. I am Cheshta Dora, Head of Research and Content Strategy, and I'm thrilled you've joined us for today's conversation that sits right across at the intersection of innovation and empathy for the talent segment that's actually often put on the side burner. AI meets human touch, redefining the candidate experience. Now, a recent research study showed one in four job seekers, only 26% of candidates say that they had a great experience last year. Another one said only 40% of candidates still feel uncomfortable when AI drives the key hiring steps. Another study by Talent Board's 2024 APAC benchmark shows that candidate resentment has climbed to 12%. That's roughly one in eight applicants who now vow never to reapply in a particular organization where they've had a poor experience. So, this has become a very urgent conversation as AI becomes embedded in talent acquisition. The hiring journey is undergoing a dramatic transformation. From chatbots engaging candidates around the clock to algorithms screening applications in seconds, technology promises efficiency and insight. Yet, the essence of hiring remains deeply human, shaped by empathy, trust, and authentic connection. Now, when we talk about talent engagement at scale, one name that consistently stands out is Unstop. Please join me in welcoming Ankit Agarwal, founder and CEO of Unstop.
Thank you so much, Ishta. Pleasure to be here. Looking forward to the discussion.
It's a pleasure having you here with us, Ankit. How are you doing?
All good. You tell me. A good sunny day finally in monsoons.
Yes, absolutely. But I love the rains as well, unless there's some disruption. All right. Ankit, this discussion, as you know, explores how leaders are really navigating the tension and synergy between automation and the human touch. How do they really ensure AI-driven processes enhance rather than diminish candidate experience? And what risks usually arise when digital tools replace such personal interactions? And you are an expert at it, and that's why we can't, wait to dive deeper into this conversation with you. If that's all right with you, would love to start.
Sure. No, I'm looking forward to the conversation. First, I don't treat myself an expert, and I don't think anybody is an expert the way AI is changing.
Yeah.
Today we launch something and the model changes tomorrow. So everybody is learning, but happy to share what I've learned over past few months.
Yeah, the pace is unreal, to be honest, the way it's changing. But yes, let's definitely discuss and learn with it. These conversations are something that's going to help us learn and figure out what could be the action steps that our listeners can actually contextualize for their organizations. And while we are at it, feel to our listeners, feel free to add in comments in the comments section, and we'd love to take some of the questions from your end as well later on. All right, to start with, Ankit, what I'd love to understand from your experience is where has AI made the biggest positive difference in enhancing candidate experience, and where has it actually fallen short today?
Good question to start off with, sort of addressing the elephant in the room, right? So I think let me talk about three elements, which is, let's say, the three areas where definitely I see good positives about AI coming into the whole value chain of TA, talent experience and all, and possibly two or three areas where I think we still have some deviation, though we are moving the needle there as well, right? So let me talk about, let's say, the positive enhancements in the candidate experience, right? The first and foremost, I think I call in my terms, talent velocity or the speed and the scale at which you can actually go and do stuff, right? And let me explain you. AI can definitely help you get more applications or rather relevant applications, which means that it can help you screen them and move away from the mundane task of either doing it manually or maybe doing it through those keyword-based matching. They can help you schedule interviews, maybe answer FAQs like a chatbot. And many a times, what happens is when we talk about scale and scalability, uh, many a times humans or the intervention of humans delay some of those processes, right? So let's say you may not have an interviewer, but you have 100 candidates. What do you do, right? And that's where AI interviewers are coming into the picture, right? So the first thing is speed and scalability. And trust me, for me, the sense, and I keep telling my team that let's build a system where if the pizzas can be delivered in 30 minutes, and I heard it in one of the other meetings when I was dealing with others, that can we look at 30 relevant applications in 30 minutes within 30-kilometer radius of the recruiter and the candidates, right? 30, 30, 30. Can we make them happen? I think AI can make that speed and scale happen. The second would be obviously just straight away bias reduction. Humans will always be biased. There is no two questions. And if AI comes into the picture, the biases get reduced at every stage, whether it's sourcing, screening, interviewing, assessments, or even hiring. So that's the second biggest aspect where it can actually increase the performance based on the skills and eliminate those indicators of, let's say, name, backgrounds, and demographics, right? And the third is, I think it's 24 into 7, right? Humans are not 24/7, but you can have, let's say, candidate support if they're facing any problems, offer real-time responses, helping them get clarity on any part of the hiring cycle or the JD or anything real time, right? Uh, the second element, I think, where there are still deviations and it's a work in progress, I think where it's falling short is contextual understanding. So when I say contextual understanding, it can, it the AI is getting is very generic, though it's diving deep into every element. But I still believe when we say contextual understanding, a product manager at, let's say, even at an Amazon versus a Google versus maybe a Meta and maybe other companies, even at experience level of 5 years, may be very different from each other, right? So does the AI has that contextual understanding of the industry, company, and job profile and the experiences? I think we have made some humongous progress, but still, can we put in the culture piece in? Not sure, and that's where the human interviews needs to happen. I think the next thing is emotional intelligence and generic feedback. We it's becoming more emotional than it was before, and that's why it also needs to track and evaluate the same for the candidate as well, and feedback. Can it be very, very specific? Because I think where in the whole value chain where it breaks is essentially HRs cannot get back to candidates, and but there is an expectation from candidates that hey, HR can share a piece or maybe a two-liner on the feedback. Can we make it happen? I think the AI is perfectly can do that, but the feedback might be generic. Can it be very, very crystal clear and to the point so that it helps them improve? I think that's possibly the areas of pros and cons.
Perfect. I think you've touched upon a lot of points here, Ankit. And one thing that you mentioned about contextual understanding, after, I think after Gen AI, agentic AI, cognitive AI is a thing that we are all waiting for, where emotional intelligence is also going to come with AI, and that's going to take over a lot of our tasks as well. And we have to see how to tap the untapped human potential and make it work with the technology. But I think you also touched upon the speed and scalability aspect, and one very cool example you gave on the AI led interviews, which I want to deep dive into. Now that is a very human experience when it comes to interviewing a candidate, when it comes to making human evaluation. How do you really ensure that that AI driven communication feels personal and authentic rather than transactional and cold? And what does that hiring evaluation look like in those terms?
I think, Cheshta, the first thing we need to do, and I think there has been many, many improvements, and that's what we do at the core at Anstar, is tone calibration, right? It needs to sound that you're talking to somebody as if it's a human at the other end. And then let's say specifically in India, we've had clients where they say that can we have somebody who's speaking in Indian tone and tonality, right? So I think that's one. Definitely, we are paying close attention to the tone of the AI-generated messages. Every chatbot or automated email trigger or maybe scripted should sound empathetic and friendly and not robotic. So using those conversational language and inserting human style pauses, affirmations that, we get it, right? You've had a amazing experience, right? Let me add on to that and maybe ask you something different, right? I think those fillers, right? Earlier we used to say that let's eliminate fillers, but I think those are the only fillers that make conversation human, right? The second element I would say again contextual triggers, right? Can we ensure that whatever triggers that we do in any of those channels or domains are based on candidate behaviors, right? So let's say if a candidate is leaving or looking at leaving midway, right, of an application or a funnel process, can we give them a sense and can we understand clearly why that person would be leaving at that touch point and give them a personalized message that, hey, we think you are thinking like this, but that's not correct. We are much bigger than what you think we are. Can we have those messages? And I think there has been very, very nicely things done in that manner. And I think we also need a human override system. And let me explain what I mean by that. Even with all the automation, there is always a human loop, and we believe that a human in the loop for critical conversations is needed to avoid those conflicts, hallucination, grievances, redressal, and other elements as well. But overall, I think there has been a massive, massive improvement, and we are seeing thousands of such interactions, or even millions, happening on a daily basis. But it should not be transactional. It's more getting more personal and authentic through tone, calibrations, and contextual focus.
Right. Very cool examples that you've given here, Ankit. I'm actually curious to understand as you talk about human loop here and some of the points, some of the ways that you have made your platform with the tone calibration, contextual triggers, made it feel more like human touch and give it a more personal and authentic feel. What I'm curious to understand is what are some of those key human touch points in the hiring process that you actually believe must never be automated? And why is that?
Okay, I didn't realize this is coming when I spoke about the earlier one. First is, and I'm sure everybody would love it. I think the offer negotiation and closure. You need two humans to do that. And if you are able to have that pivotal emotional milestone, it will be amazing. But I still believe how it's handled can make and break the candidate experience, at least because towards the end and where you have done all the hard work or so. So I think the personal conversation here is a reaffirmation of the trust and the credibility and the excitement between the two parties. So offer negotiation and closure. And then I also firmly believe that the final interviews should be taken not by smart AI agents or so, but it has to be a human thing, that human gut, right? That instinct and ability to read that subtle cues and build a rapport cannot replace or replicate machines, right? So I personally believe that, let's say, culture fit, the passion, the vision, right? All of that, you need a final human interview, and may not be for all roles, all industries, or all companies, but uh, maybe in many of them, specifically in the experience slot, you would definitely need that. And I think where human touch points also play a key role is maybe understanding rejections. I'm not sure if the rejections are taken up that well, or and that's why, as even as humans, we rather not deal or talk about rejections with the other. And I still know that when I was first recruited in my first job, I still believe I was part of the recruitment firm and we were recruiting. I made it a point that why a person is getting rejected should be put across to the person that, hey, and this might be that, hey, there was nothing wrong, but the others were just a notch better, right? I think these three areas. So, yes, the negotiation and the offers, the final interviews, and maybe if the company is looking at giving them rejections or speaking about those specifically when the volumes are lower, that can also be humanized.
Yeah, yeah. I think what I love about this is that you've actually broken down the interview process and talked about each aspect and round in much clarity, and really mentioned where there could be like a partnership between AI and human beings in conducting, let's say, that round and giving that experience, and where it's totally where you need total human intervention. While we're talking about that, there's a question that's in the comment section from our listeners that actually bring a very good perspective here. How do you manage the transparency of where there is AI intervention versus human intervention in that whole application journey or hiring process? How at what stage do you maintain that transparency? What does that level of transparency look like with the candidates, and they actually seek that today?
Yeah. I think transparency has two elements. One, I think, is we need to be transparent with the candidates that, hey, the next stage is taken up by the AI, and these are the elements that the AI will be evaluating. Or maybe at the time of AI interview, we need to tell them that, boss, there is an AI interview that will happen, right? It's not a human interview. Otherwise, that will be wrong to tell them that it's an interview. By default, everybody would think it's human, and then once you enter, it looks like an AI-driven interview. So everybody has the right to basically have that information firsthand. That's one. Second, I think from the transparency point of view, I think this I link back to the earlier um, answer to the earlier question where I mentioned that it can be a 24 into 7 chatbot or so. I was, you can actually turn your JD into a podcast, okay, using AI. So imagine if it's not a JD, but you and I are discussing the JD, diving deep into it, and a candidate can be just um, a viewer who is now asking questions, just like this question, right?
Interesting.
That, hey, I want to understand really what this element is, and then because it's in podcast generated by AI, and that can happen any time of the day during the whole process because it's automated. You answer them while you're doing a conversation, right? So when I say, and then the third element becomes that data privacy. Many a times people may not want to sort of dive into that data privacy, but I still believe that that person will be very, very less. But there are GDPR laws and all. So we need to tell them that, hey, because it's system generated, the system will be processing that data. You should be okay system processing that data. If you don't want to, then it's your call. Right? So I think these are the areas, and we need to be going all upfront in that transparency mode. But transparency is both. If they want to dive into any of the elements, we should know that there is somebody and the AI can give them those answers. And the second is that it's processed data privacy and all the other information is processed to them real.
Right. So once you have maintained that transparency, communicated that process and the AI intervention, have you or any of the people in the industry have they encountered any sort of pushback or concerns with the AI in hiring? I'm just curious to understand.
No, I think everybody is looking forward to how AI can be a game changer. They are currently also using AI in some context form in their daily work or so. It's just that there's no pushbacks. Frankly, there are no concerns as such, which are, I mean, alarming or which not everybody knows. But everybody is looking forward. See, in my view, I think the velocity factor, the speed is one, which AI is doing. The experience is the third, and the experience is the second, and third. For me, I think where we call them three pillars. The third is the community angle. How AI can enable you to tell you your personal experience, but to make you feel that you're part of the community. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example. I mean, those can be micro communities as well. So everybody watches Netflix, right? And you get your recommendations based on what you have watched earlier. So it's not just what you have watched, but they divide you into many clusters. Okay. And those clusters might be only for 50 people or 100 people who have shown similar interests, right? And that's how the communities can come into the picture, because then the employers will also be able to see that, hey, I want to build a community of, let's say, maybe female coders. I want to build a community of management grants. I want to build a community of maybe people who are looking at making their career only in gaming. I think that's the third set. But there are no concerns as such, but people are looking forward to these areas which will open up new profiles, new aspects to dive in.
That would be such an interesting way to build talent pipelines for the targeted roles that organizations need for the right skill set that they need for the skills cluster that is being formed. I think that would be very very interesting. All right. So, in the interest of time, Ankit, I would just go ahead and ask the last question, which I love as well. If you were to give one practical advice for integrating AI tools in the ways that genuinely improve candidate experience, rather than not just the speed at the cost, which is there, but yes, the true enhancement of candidate experience, what would that advice be?
I think what I generally ask, and I tell my team when we are creating products, that hey, start with the candidate and not the tech. Okay, let me explain. If you want to implement a system, integrated or so, what you should be asking is, would I feel valued if I went through that tech or the process? Right? If you feel that you can go through that process this much tech enabled, then you can possibly launch it for others. First thing, right? If it's happening for you, it can happen for others, right? The second is use AI to enhance empathy and not remove it from the whole equation, right? It should not be just a mundane stuff. It should have that. When we are integrating, I think pilot before scaling, test the tools in that subset of candidates, maybe internal and external, and that's how our clients are doing. How is it making them feel? And when you're doing that, it also get trained and you will be able to trust it. And then finally, I think we need to ensure that blend AI and human intelligence both into the system. The best systems, the best processes at this point in time are hybrid in nature. Let machines crunch numbers, let people make decisions.
Yep. Great. Wonderful. I think keeping candidates, keeping talent at the center of everything truly makes a difference and helps you really see how tech is an enabler, it's an accelerator, and the real challenge, the real issue that you're trying to solve for is talent experience, is candidate experience. This is wonderful. Thank you so much. And a great note to conclude on as well. As usual, thank you again for your invaluable perspective and ideas that are truly food for thought, Ankit. I hope with this, our community, our leaders, our listeners get a real sense of how organizations are successfully leveraging and can further leverage AI for enhancing candidate experience.
No, thank you so much, Ishta. Loved our discussion. Hopefully, users would have got something. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Have a great rest of the day.